Have you ever wondered what it feels like to stand where two oceans meet through human engineering, or gaze into the fiery heart of an active volcano? Central America is where these impossible experiences become reality. This narrow bridge between continents packs more natural drama and human achievement into its borders than anywhere else I've explored. Picture a perfectly cone-shaped giant towering over Costa Rican rainforests, and locks that lift ships between seas. Every destination here tells a story of power, both natural and human-made. Subscribe to discover more places that challenge everything you thought you knew. The Panama Canal uses 52 million gallons of fresh water for each ship that passes through, more than some cities use in an entire day. And speaking of water doing impossible things, Lake Nicaragua contains the world's only freshwater sharks, which evolved from saltwater bull sharks that got trapped when the lake separated from the ocean thousands of years ago. But it's not just the water that defies logic. In Monteverde cloud forest, trees literally drink water from the air through their leaves because the mist is so thick. The ancient mysteries are just as mind-bending. Chichén Itzá's main pyramid produces a chirping sound when you clap your hands, and the echo perfectly mimics the call of the sacred Quetzal bird, something the Maya engineered over 1,000 years ago. Meanwhile, Masaya Volcano's lava lake glows so brightly it can be seen from space, and locals once believed it was the entrance to hell. And then there's Tortuguero National Park, where there are literally no roads. The only way to reach this sea turtle nesting ground is by boat or plane. Now let's explore the most incredible places this region has to offer. What would you do if the quiet hill behind your town, the one everyone assumed was dead, suddenly exploded? For over 400 years, Arenal sat silent. Farmers grazed cattle on its slopes. Scientists barely gave it a second glance. Then on July 29, 1968, the western flank ripped open and buried the town of Tabacon in rock and ash. No warning. No gradual rumble. Just sudden, catastrophic fury from a volcano nobody feared. Today you stand at its base and the cone rises nearly 1,700 meters into low-hanging cloud, its shape almost too symmetrical to be real. Hardened lava trails scar the green slopes like dark rivers frozen in time. The air carries a faint sulfur tang, drifting from nearby hot springs. Water heated by the same restless force sleeping just beneath your feet. Mist curls around the summit at dawn, and you realize something. This mountain is only resting. A massive cargo ship rises 85 feet into the air, lifted by nothing but gravity and water. No pumps. No engines. Just the weight of a tropical lake pouring into concrete chambers built over a century ago. The Panama Canal isn't one clean channel slicing coast to coast. It's a patchwork of artificial lakes, dammed rivers, and the Galliard Cut, a man-made gash carved straight through the continental divide. 50 miles of engineering audacity that connects two oceans. You stand at the locks in the early morning, mist clinging to the rainforest canopy, and watch vessels the size of apartment buildings glide past in near silence. Vivid green jungle crowds the steep walls of the cut, pressing in like it wants to reclaim what took 10 years and thousands of lives to build. Did you know there's a lake in Central America where bull sharks swim? Not saltwater. Freshwater. Lake Nicaragua stretches over 400 square miles, the largest lake in the region. And somehow, bull sharks navigate up the San Juan River from the Caribbean to hunt in its depths. Scientists puzzled over this for decades, originally believing the sharks were a landlocked species. Turns out, they just commute. You stand on the shore and the water sprawls endlessly, deep blue against impossibly green hills. Colorful fishing boats rock gently near the banks, and rising from the center of the lake, twin volcanoes pierce the clouds on an island that feels conjured from a dream. During the 19th century, gold seekers eyed this very water as a shortcut to California. Cobblestone streets worn smooth by 5 centuries of footsteps. That's what greets you in Antigua Guatemala, a city the Spanish crown abandoned in 1773 after earthquakes shattered it into rubble. Just left it behind. But here's the thing. The ruins never disappeared. They became the architecture. You walk past the roofless Cathedral of San Jose, where jungle vines twist through crumbling arches, and right next door someone's sipping espresso at a cafe painted the deepest indigo blue. Founded in 1543, this was once Central America's most powerful capital, home to its first university. Now it thrives again as a UNESCO World Heritage Site where 400-year-old facades glow amber and violet at golden hour, all framed by the enormous cone of Volcán de Agua rising behind the rooftops. Flowers spill from wrought iron balconies, church bells echo off stone walls, and the past feels impossibly, stubbornly alive. Did you know there's a tiny frog in Panama that literally changes color based on its mood? The strawberry poison dart frog. Locals call it the red frog. Thrives on just one archipelago in the Caribbean, and nowhere else on Earth quite like this. Welcome to Bocas del Toro. You step off the water taxi onto weathered wooden docks, and colorful houses on stilts lean over turquoise shallows like they're trying to get a better look at the reef below. And what a reef it is! The largest coral system in the Caribbean outside of Central America's barrier reef, teeming with nurse sharks, eagle rays, and sea turtles gliding through gardens of brain coral. But here's what gets me. You can snorkel those reefs in the morning, then hike into dense rainforest canopy by afternoon, the sweet weight of coconut and wet earth filling your lungs. Sunset paints the water copper and pink, and somewhere on the forest floor, a tiny frog blushes deeper red. Did you know that in 1968, a volcano everyone assumed was dormant for centuries just woke up? Exploded, really. Destroyed an entire town overnight. And from that devastation, La Fortuna was born. Today you stand in its shadow, watching wisps of steam curl from the cone of Arenal, rising nearly 1,700 meters into clouds that never quite leave. But here's the thing. That same volcanic fury now heats rivers of mineral-rich water flowing just 15 minutes down the road. You sink into those natural hot springs, sulfur and wet earth heavy in the air, rainforest pressing close, and the tension just dissolves. Think that contrast sounds impossible? Volcano and spa, destruction and healing, side by side? Trust me. At sunset, Arenal goes black against a burning orange sky, and everything makes sense. 0.1% of Earth's surface. That's all Monteverde covers. Yet somehow, 2.5% of the world's entire biodiversity clings to these mist-soaked ridges. You step onto the trail and the forest swallows you whole. Thick fog drifts through branches dripping with moss, and the air hits your lungs heavy with wet earth and decomposing leaves. Over 400 species of birds hide in this canopy. Hummingbirds flash emerald and violet between orchids you'd miss if you blinked. The whole place exists because a group of Quakers settled here in the 1950s, determined to protect what they'd found. And what they found still feels untouched. Morning is when the magic peaks. Mist so thick the trees dissolve into silhouettes and every sound sharpens. Dripping leaves. A distant Quetzal call. Nothing else. What if I told you that Blackbeard himself used to hide his ships in these waters? Roatán, a sliver of land just 50 miles long, sits on the edge of the world's second largest barrier reef. But here's what makes it truly rare. Beneath the turquoise surface, massive colonies of elkhorn coral still thrive, a critically endangered species vanishing almost everywhere else in the Caribbean. You slip into the water and the color hits you immediately. Electric blue dissolving into coral gardens so dense they look painted. Parrotfish drift through branching elkhorn formations that have grown here for centuries, each one irreplaceable. The island shaped pirates and outlaws for generations. Now it shelters something far more fragile. At dawn, the reef glows through still water, and you realize you're floating above something the world is quietly losing. There are no roads into Tortuguero. No cars, no highways, just water. You arrive by boat, gliding through a maze of jungle canals so dense and tangled they call this place the Amazon of Costa Rica. But here's what makes it extraordinary. Every year, thousands of green sea turtles drag themselves onto these black sand beaches to nest, the largest gathering in the entire Western Hemisphere. They return to the exact same stretch of shore where they themselves hatched, laying eggs just feet from one another under cover of darkness. At dawn, mist rises off the waterways like smoke. You paddle in silence past caimans, toucans, howler monkeys screaming from 77,000 acres of unbroken canopy. Did you know there's a river in Guatemala that literally disappears underground? And what it leaves behind might be the most surreal swimming holes on Earth. The Cajaban River plunges beneath a 300-meter limestone bridge, and on top of that bridge sit cascading pools of water so turquoise they look digitally altered. They're not. You hike 45 minutes through thick jungle, sweat dripping, legs burning, and then you reach the Mirador viewpoint and everything stops. Tiered pools glow against endless green, shaped by over 10,000 years of erosion. The Maya consider these waters sacred, and honestly, standing there, you understand why. Slip into a pool and the water is cool, impossibly clear, rushing gently from one limestone tier to the next. No crowds. Just jungle hum and light dancing across turquoise. The Spanish conquistadors called it the mouth of hell. The indigenous Corotega believed a god lived inside, demanding human sacrifices to keep the earth from shaking. And honestly, when you stand at the rim and peer down into a bubbling, glowing lake of actual lava, you get why. Masaya is one of only a handful of volcanoes on the planet with a permanent lava lake, and you can drive right up to the crater's edge. No hours-long hike required. The sulfur hits your nose first, sharp and acrid, before you even see it. But at dusk, the sky darkens and that molten glow intensifies. Orange and crimson pulsing from a crater 1.5 kilometers wide. Steam curls upward, lit from below, drifting across black volcanic rock into jungle green. Did you know that over 20 different Mayan languages are spoken within a single city? Not across a country. One city. Quetzaltenango, or Zila as locals call it, sits ringed by volcanic peaks at nearly 2,400 meters, and it pulses with a linguistic diversity that rivals entire nations. You wander through the morning markets, and the air hums with Quiche, Mam, Tsutujil, languages stretching back millennia, alive in every transaction. Deep reds and indigos blaze from hand-woven textiles stacked in towering piles. This was briefly a capital of the Central American Federation in the 1820s, a bold experiment in unity. That ambition still lingers here. Fog clings to the surrounding ridgelines at dawn, and somewhere below, 20 ancient tongues greet the morning. The sand is still warm under your feet when the first one appears. A shadow, slow and deliberate, dragging herself from the surf. Then, another. And another. Every year, thousands of olive ridley sea turtles, one of the most endangered species on the planet, choose this stretch of Costa Rican coastline to lay their eggs. Santa Teresa sits where dry tropical forest collides with the Pacific, creating an ecosystem so layered that jaguars prowl the canopy while humpback whales breach offshore. 30 years ago, this was just a quiet fishing village. Now surfers carve through glassy barrels at dawn, and yoga mats line the cliff tops by mid-morning. But the turtles don't care about any of that. Sunset melts copper across the water, and another ancient silhouette emerges from the foam. Did you know there's an island in Honduras, just 11 square miles, where you can swim with whale sharks any month of the year? Not a seasonal window. Not if you're lucky. Year-round. Utila sits along the world's second-largest barrier reef, and these gentle giants treat it like home. You slip into water that shifts from deep indigo to electric turquoise as morning light hits, and suddenly a shadow longer than a school bus glides beneath you. Silent. Effortless. Centuries ago, pirates used these same waters to vanish between raids, and traces of that outlaw spirit still linger in local stories and weathered architecture. But nobody comes here chasing ghosts. They come chasing that shadow. And as the sun dips low, the reef pulses with color, and somewhere out in the blue, another whale shark passes through. The cobblestones beneath your feet were laid on top of rubble. Actual rubble. From a city so devastated by earthquakes that the Spanish crown abandoned it entirely in 1773. But here's the thing. People came back. They rebuilt right on top of the ruins, and today La Antigua rises from the bones of its predecessor like a defiant second act. You walk beneath the bright yellow Arco de Santa Catalina, past crumbling monastery walls where bougainvillea spills through cracks, and the smell of roasting coffee pulls you into doorways you hadn't planned on entering. Volcán de Agua looms at the end of nearly every street. Massive, silent, framed by colonial facades painted in ochre and terracotta. Spanish galleons once stopped here, not to rest, but to count their plundered gold. That's how Isla Contadora got its name. A counting house in the middle of the Pacific. Centuries later, John Wayne and Sinatra traded Hollywood for these shores, slipping away to a place most people couldn't find on a map. Today, roughly 300 residents call it home. You step off the boat and warm, powdery sand gives beneath your feet. Turquoise water so clear, you can trace fish shadows on the seafloor. Green hills frame every cove. At sunset, Fishing boats rock gently in the harbor, painted hulls catching the last gold light. Did you know that one of the rarest seabirds on Earth nests on a tiny island barely 1.5 kilometers long? Cayo Zapatilla shelters the world's only known population of the endangered red-billed tropic bird, a flash of white wings and crimson beak against endless blue. 17th century pirates once used this place as a hideout, and honestly, you understand why. Salt air mixes with the sweetness of tropical flowers as you wade ashore. At sunset, the whole sky catches fire, and the water holds every color. $600 per pound. That's what a single bag of geisha coffee from Boquete can fetch at auction, making it some of the most expensive coffee on Earth. And it grows here, on misty slopes beneath Volcan Baru, Panama's tallest peak. You arrive at dawn, and the cool highland air carries that deep, earthy aroma of fresh roasted beans before you even see the plantations. Emerald rows of coffee stretch toward the volcano, cloaked in cloud. The Caldera River rushes through dense rainforest nearby. Take a sip of that geisha, and trust me, you taste the altitude, the volcanic soil, the mist itself. Only 10% of Palenque has been excavated. 10%. That means 90% of this ancient Maya city still lies buried beneath the jungle, waiting. You step through the morning mist and the ruins emerge like ghosts. Stone temples draped in green, howler monkeys screaming from the canopy above. The Temple of the Inscriptions rises 22 meters, sheltering the tomb of Pakal the Great, a ruler so revered they sealed him inside a jade death mask over 1,300 years ago. Fog curls through the corridors at dawn, and you realize this place isn't done telling its story. The salt breeze hits you before your feet touch sand. Tamarindo. 50 years ago, this was cattle country. Ranchers and loggers, not a surfboard in sight. Then word got out about the waves, and practically overnight it earned a reputation as Costa Rica's Wild West, a lawless stretch of Pacific coast where surfers and drifters carved out a new kind of town. You walk past sun-bleached board shacks, wax melting in the heat, reggaeton drifting from somewhere. The water runs turquoise against gold sand, and every evening the sky catches fire. Deep amber bleeding into violet over the Pacific. Nobody rushes here. Nobody needs to. Did you know that deep in Costa Rica's Caribbean coast, the Bribri people have been turning cacao into something sacred for centuries, long before chocolate was ever a candy bar? Portoviejo de Talamanca is where you sit with indigenous elders, grinding raw cacao by hand, that rich earthy aroma rising as they share ceremonies most travelers never witness. But this town layers more than one culture. Reggae pulses from painted wooden houses. Afro-Caribbean spice kitchens crowd the sand-dusted streets. You taste it all. Coconut rice, fresh cacao, jerk seasoning on the breeze. The jungle presses close, impossibly green against turquoise water. What if an entire archipelago ran its own country within a country? The Guna people of San Blas don't answer to Panama's government. They answer to their own. Have since 1925, when they fought for and won full autonomy. 365 islands, each one governed by indigenous law. You arrive by small boat, and immediately the colors hit you. Hand-stitched molas draped over dugout canoes, geometric patterns so intricate they take weeks to complete. Palm-thatched huts line shores where turquoise water runs impossibly clear over white sand. At sunrise, fishermen paddle out in silence, the horizon glowing soft gold behind them. The same sand where surfers carve waves by day becomes a maternity ward at night. Every October through March, endangered leatherback turtles, some weighing over 700 pounds, drag themselves onto Tamarindo's shore to bury their eggs under moonlight. By morning, no trace remains. You'd never know. The beach just carries on, golden and salt-kissed, tropical flowers threading sweetness through the breeze while riders drop into warm Pacific swells backed by jungle green hills. Once a quiet fishing village, Tamarindo now pulses with surf shops and open-air bars. Did you know that for over 40 years, nobody realized they were living next to a ticking time bomb? Until 1968, locals thought Arenal was just another dormant hill. Then it exploded, and didn't stop for 42 years. Nearly half a century of continuous eruption, rivers of lava glowing orange against the night sky, visible from miles away. Today, you stand on trails where dark volcanic rock meets impossibly green rainforest. Sulfur drifts up from nearby hot springs, mixing with the smell of wet earth and wild orchids. The cone rises 5,000 feet, perfectly shaped. Silent now. For now. Pirates didn't just raid this place. They captured it. Twice. The Castillo de San Felipe rises from the banks of the Rio Dulce, where Spain funneled stolen gold and silver toward Europe. Every coin passed through this choke point. You walk the ramparts and the damp stone breathes centuries of conflict, moss creeping between blocks that have weathered cannon fire and tropical storms since 1565. Below, the river stretches wide and green, impossibly calm for a waterway that once decided the fate of empires. Late afternoon light warms the walls to amber. The jungle presses close, patient and reclaiming. Did you know there's a city of over 3,000 structures still buried beneath the jungle? Tikal sprawled across 16 square kilometers, home to more than 100,000 people, then vanished from the world's memory until the 1950s. You climb Temple 4, 70 meters straight up, the tallest pyramid the Maya ever built. At the top, limestone peaks pierce an endless green canopy like stone fingers reaching through time. Around you, the jungle hums. Patient, ancient, still keeping most of its secrets. The trail from jungle ruins to Pacific coastline drops you into Quipos, a town named after the indigenous Quipoa people, whose craft traditions still weave through the local markets. Once nothing more than a quiet fishing village, it now pulls in over 100,000 visitors a year. Yet, somehow, it doesn't feel overrun. You wander through open-air stalls where the smell of fresh ceviche stops you mid-step. Tangy, bright, unforgettable. Beyond town, Manuel Antonio National Park sprawls where rainforest meets white sand. But stay for sunset. The Pacific swallows the sun in golds and deep violet, and the whole coastline exhales. Did you know that indigenous Nicaraguans once believed this lake was a gateway to the underworld? 23,000 years ago, a volcanic eruption collapsed inward, carving a crater 5.5 kilometers wide. Today it holds water so impossibly clear you can see 15 meters straight down. One of the clearest lakes in Central America. Fish found nowhere else on Earth drift through that turquoise stillness. At sunrise, Mist curls off the surface like something alive, and the jungle-clad rim glows emerald against water that seems almost lit from within.